Hello, hello. I'm Teresa with Teresa Rene Art. I'm live with you today from Atlanta, Georgia, streaming on my page and also the Pentart page. I hope you're doing well. Let me know when you come on. Make sure to say hello. It's been such a joy and privilege to be with you these past 3 weeks, and this is our fourth and final week of this painting that we're doing. We're capturing, the title is Urban Dreams. We're capturing the girl with her hat in this beautiful space, and we're using the Artemisia line by Pentart, which has been just such a fun line of paints to try out. So thank you, Pentart, for giving me this opportunity. We're going to continue. I've got my palette over here. It's exactly the same as last time. I did store it in the freezer, and so they're perfectly fine to use again now. So make sure to say hello when you're on. If you're watching the replay, make sure to type in #replay. Hi, Sue. Thank you for joining. All right, you guys. So we're going to finish today. We're going to work on the dress. We're going to probably highlight some more skin tones. Work on the eyes some more. We're not going to be 100% done, but for the purpose of this demo, we're not going to have another demo necessarily. And I'll continue painting on it even well after today's session, but you'll get the general idea of where this painting is going, and you'll have it walk away hopefully with a good idea of how the Artemisia paints are working. If along the way you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Even if it's on the replay, I'll come back and check. Okay, you guys, I'm going to turn my camera down, and I'm going to add my palette to the stage. This is the view about as close as I can get with my current setup view-wise. I wish I could get a little bit closer so you guys could see a little bit more detail. But I'm going to try to scooch this up even just a little bit more, but that's really about the best I can get it. So anyway, this is where we're at. Last week, we blocked in the hair. The week before that, we did the hat. We did some skin tones and the face. Last week, we also did the arms. So the phase that we're in now is sort of kind of like, there's definitely some more work to do in terms of details and layering, and a painting like this probably going to be more along the lines of like a 10-hour painting. So yes, I will definitely have to continue once we're done, but I wanted you guys to get kind of a sense of oil painting and the process that's involved. And of course, an opportunity to really get a good close look at the beautiful range of colors that are in the Artemisia line. So we're going to go ahead. Today we're going to work on the dress and get that in. We won't be able to do all the details and stuff, but we'll at least get it in, and then we'll switch back and work on the hair and probably the face a little bit more. So let's get started. Do you guys have any questions or anything before we jump in? If you do, and it can even be about anything that we've already kind of tackled up to this point, I'm happy to answer any questions. So if you want me to review, also I'm happy to review the paint colors that I'm using. This is alizarin crimson. This is vermilion. I was going to take a peek. I've got some more reds here that I was going to put on the canvas and see if we like any of these better. We've got scarlet red. So we can put that over here and see if we like that. It looks pretty close to the vermilion. It's really not that much different. And then the other one I have is rose. This one might be a little too purple, but let's look at it and see what we think. I actually kind of like that rose one. It's it's not quite as deep as the alizarin. So we'll probably use that rose one. Let me grab some more alizarin. Burnt sienna. Let's grab a little more alizarin. Can y'all hear me okay? Let me know. All right. All right, and now I'm gonna mix up a little bit of a darker, kind of a dark brown tone. Let's get that in there. And I'm gonna just sort of tone this down, kind of make it a little bit darker, because this side of the dress is quite dark in here. I don't want it I don't want it purple, but I do want it darker and a little bit grayer, meaning less chromatic. So I'm adding my brown mixture to that. I can even, if I want to kill some of this chroma, I can even add a little bit of black and make it a little bit less purple. Yeah, there we go. So that's gonna work for this darkest side. And then I've got, let me do kind of mix a little bit of this red for something sort of in between. And then we're gonna go a little bit more. So this is more of kind of a pure red. We'll get a little bit of that vermilion and scarlet in there. My daughter said she thought it was more pink. So I was thinking maybe we add just a touch of white in this one, so it's not quite so orange. And just expand on that just a little bit. I like that. I kind of like that. Okay, because that orange, this vermilion and scarlet mixture is really, really bright. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with kind of blocking in some of this color. And I'm going to use a round brush. I used brushes from Rosemary. We talked about that a little bit last time. I need to get my linseed oil, which is over there. Hold on one second. I didn't grab my linseed oil. Let's just get a little bit of this. I'm just using a little solvent-free gel. You could definitely use linseed oil. All right. All right, so let's come in here with this darkest color. We're gonna kind of go right about like here to here, and then about like that with this. We're gonna get that on there. It's quite purple here, but we can always tone it down after as well. With glazes or whatnot. Kind of checking my view here. So happy Halloween, everybody. If you are doing something. Let me know in the comments if you're doing something today. We've got a bunch of teenagers coming to the house after school today. So it is going to be chaos over here. So I have my few minutes today of quiet, meditative painting. Let's go ahead and just go all the way up in here. I'm not worried about the details at this stage. You know, if I want to add those in, I can pop those in a little bit later. I kind of like this scarlet as sort of a mid-tone color. I'm liking that one a lot just by itself. That's the rose. This one is called, this pile that I'm picking up, it's just called Rose. Whoops. And I kind of like that one. I'm not worried about the pleats yet. I can add those in if I want to. I can add them in later. Or I can leave it very abstract. I don't even have to add them in if I don't want to. I think a suggestion of them is nice. One thing I will do though, before I get too far in, I will come in with this one and I'm just going to kind of indicate where this ridge line is. That way I don't lose it. And this would be a little bit deeper color up in here and inside these petals. All right, so this one stays pretty dark all the way across the top. Okay, then it kind of starts to lighten up over here. And then even in these ridges, like at the top of them. Okay, and over on this side, this is where the form has a distinct shape. Okay, now let's get this lighter color up in here. And let's use that to outline some of this detail. All right, let's soften some of this out. We're going to use a comber brush. I'm going to soften some of these edges and transitions. And I'm kind of, when I'm doing this, I'm sort of moving my brush in the direction of the form and the fabric. Okay. So that gives us a really good place to start. And we can start coming in and building up some of the detail from here. So you can see, and I would typically spend a pretty good deal of time just trying to work through some of this detail. Of course, it's much easier to do that when your paint is kind of dry, you know, like when this first layer sort of starts to dry. But I want to kind of give you an idea of what would happen from here. And if I want to put some of these pleats in, I can start indicating. But I have the general idea of the form here. And I have something kind of started and blocked in. And then, of course, we have and there's a lot of shadow over here and over here that we'll capture as well once this initial layer of paint starts to settle in. can see I sort of lost some of my flower when I painted the lighter area. So now I'm just coming back in and adding those back. Okay. All right, so that should give us a nice starting point for my next session on the dress. And that's about as much as I'm going to do today. Let's switch gears and let's move up into the hair. Before I do that, I want to clean off these brushes that have all this bright red. So you can see like this painting process is about, it's about working from big masses to details. So I think a mistake a lot of artists make is that they try to get, really try to get involved in the details too soon, too quickly. And I wanted to, I definitely had that feeling as I was coming in here is like, oh, there's so much detail here. I'd love to capture that. But my paint's really too wet at this stage. And it's not going to come through very well. So it's kind of pointless. I would really be kind of fighting against myself if I tried to do that. So I need to let this paint, this initial layer, just kind of rest and settle before trying to get further with the detail. And even the shadows, like, you know, I need to let this sort of rest and settle. Otherwise, I'm just going to smear a bunch of red paint everywhere. And that was the idea last time when we did the hair, is I wanted to get some sort of initial mixture on there so that I could spend some time today with y'all and start to refine it a little bit more. All right. So let's work up a little bit of hair. We definitely have some light, some very light kind of yellow happening here. I'm going to take a sip of my drink. Which I want to mix up. It's going to kind of probably be a combination of this Naples, maybe a touch of the permanent. Maybe some white. That is a very yellow color. Whenever something's a little too strong, you can do a couple of things. You can add its complement, which in this case is purple. You can add its complement to the mixture, or you can add some sort of neutral earth tone, like, for example, raw umber here. So I can add a little bit of raw umber to this, which will neutralize the yellow a little bit. And a little bit more white. I think I probably added a little too much raw umber. Actually, that looks pretty good because it does have a little bit of green. Maybe I'll add just a touch more of the yellow. So I'm always kind of comparing what's on my palette knife to my reference photo. Okay, it's definitely got a little too much green in there. Let's maybe even add a touch of our red. And I need a really dark mixture. Let's dial that back with some green. And then a couple little steps in between. Okay. All right, I think I'm in good shape. Yep, exactly. All right, so over here, I've got quite a bit of dark. Oops. You can see I introduced a little bit more red. Because her hair was reading a little bit too green. So I want to come back and compensate for that with a little bit of red family. So here we have a nice warm shadow. So the first stage is really more about getting the values right, like the darks and the lights, versus the color. And then I will come in the final layers, and if I need to adjust the color or the temperature, then I will do that in the subsequent layers. This area here is quite dark. Not loving the brush I chose there. This section right here is quite orange right in here. And then it moves let me sort of get to this yellow here. And then this one is darker. It cuts across this fold. This one in here is quite dark. Less green than I have it currently. Okay, let's start to bring in some of these lights. And I feel like I need to get some sort of middle mixture. That one's too bright. Just trying to follow kind of the flow and the rhythm of the hair. And we're looking at the hair as like, we're looking at it as masses, kind of solid masses rather than individual strands, which really helps. We can do the same up here. You can spend a lot of time on hair, you guys. And it's one of those things that I usually keep coming back to refine. Because every time I look at it, I see something new. And there's so many depths of tonal variations. So down here, I'll save for later because I have all this wet red paint. So I'm kind of avoiding this area right now, but I will come back in once this red paint has settled and refine this area. But yeah, her hair is really, really pretty. Very fun to paint. And if I get some in the hat, I can come back in and repaint that hat, or this section at least, with the black. In fact, I see where there's a curve here that I didn't capture. In fact, let's do that a little bit with the ivory black. So you can always come in and refine those edges. And what I'm looking for is this little curve here. Which is so subtle, but it just adds to the movement. So I'm constantly just refining even if that means painting an area 2 or 3 times. I'll paint it as many times as I need to. Should do the trick. All right, and then one thing that I need to do here, because I have now my line is too sharp, so I'm just going to take a little bit of this darker paint. Redefine some of that. All right, now let's get our comber brush. You just want to touch it once and be done with it, right, Sue? And softening that edge a little bit. Okay. Okay, now let's see if we can get this lightest light color that we mixed up. And let's introduce that in there. And you can see that's kind of running all along this curve here. A little bit right here. I'm not putting it everywhere, just enough to sort of accentuate where some of these curves are. To blend it out a little bit more up here. This one is sort of gradually. And if I overdid it, I can come back in with the adjacent color. And knock it down. I think this is the funnest part, is getting it to this stage, because then you can really start to see it take shape. I mean, I think the whole thing is fun personally, but this is my favorite stage. All right, so I'm going to just take my comber brush. I'm going to do a little bit of blending up in here. I probably need to rework this area a little bit. Because I'm a little too light up in here, but I can do that once that's dry. Okay. So this is kind of how I approach it. I'll do, I'll do one area and then I'll switch to a different area and let the paint settle. And then I just kind of keep going and refining as I go. I want to do, before we drop off, I want to do a little bit more work on the eyes today. A smaller detail brush. We want to add a little bit more depth to these eyelashes. So we'll do that while I have this kind of darker mixture on my palette. So we'll just kind of come in here and refine some of these eyes. Start to put a little bit of lash on there. And we'll do the same over here. These over here are quite pronounced. And this area bit right near the eye is actually a good bit darker, so I'll just take the opportunity to sculpt that out a little bit. Her eyelashes are quite dramatic on this side. This is a very tiny brush. Getting out a little more detail in the eyebrow. A lot of times I kind of go like, what's currently on my palette that I can use to refine an area that I need to refine. And in this case, I've got some nice browns, which I will use in the eye area. So that's sometimes the thought process too, is using what I have while it's available. And mixed, especially on these eye areas, because it doesn't make sense to mix up a whole pile of paint for a small, relatively small area. Okay. I'm pretty happy with this for today. When I move a little bit further away from it, I will start to see some areas that I need to refine. So I'll probably continue a bit off camera. I will definitely continue a bit off camera. Okay, you guys, so that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my 4-part series. Again, I'm going to continue. I'll share the final painting with Pentart once I'm completely finished, which, you know, I probably still have a good 3 to 4 hours left on this before I'm at the point where I'm ready to go, okay, I think I'm done. I've got a lot more to do tonally in the skin tones. I want to brighten up some of the cheeks. Of course, I just got the block in on the dress. I want to add some more detail there. you know, and then I'll take a step back and I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, what else do I need to do? So I may brighten up the background a little bit. And so from this point, I've already got the big ideas done. But from this point, I'm just tweaking and refining and adjusting, kind of looking, putting it away, bringing it back out and looking at it, put it away, bring it back out and look at it. So it's definitely a process, you guys. I see something new every time I look at a piece. I go, oh, you know, there's something that I would do a little bit differently. So that's my process. I appreciate you guys being with me for these 4 weeks. Thank you to Pentart for creating a beautiful line of paints to work with. And I will see you guys at some point again in the future. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.